Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be doing a care guide on the Brooks Kingsnake. So I know there aren't that many videos about these snakes on the internet, so I just decided I was going to go ahead and make one. So let's go ahead and get started. So I guess we can go ahead and get started on talking about their enclosure. So Brooks snakes get around 4 to 6 feet on average, with females normally longer than the males. So that is not a massive enclosure, but it's a pretty well-sized enclosure. With babies, they can probably go in like 10-gallon enclosures for like the first year of their life. Second year, you could probably upgrade them to a 20-gallon. That would be good enough for a yearling. Well, yearlings and up, pretty much anything above a yearling can go from like 20 gallons and up. Bigger is always better, so the bigger you can go, the better. But when giving your Brooks Kingsnake a larger enclosure, you want to make sure you have plenty of stuff in their enclosure for them to climb around and mess around with. These snakes love skin contact, so when they're touching stuff, they feel safer, if that makes sense. So if you have a larger enclosure, you're going to want to make sure that you have a lot of stuff in it. A lot of hides, branches, plants, all that kind of stuff. Now when it comes to substrate, pretty much your like commercial brand substrates will work. Aspen works for them. But if you live in a drier state, you could probably do something like coconut fiber just to keep the moisture in. You don't want too dry of a substrate. If you live in a drier region, then you'll want to do something that can hold moisture a little bit better. This kind of goes for all king snakes, but Brooks Kingsnakes, they like to climb up high and curl up and hide, so you're going to have a lot of climbing materials, stuff that they can get high on. They also are burrowers, so you're going to want a lot of dirt, a couple inches of substrate. So if you're using the aspen bedding, you're going to put a couple inches down so they can burrow themselves. You're going to want to make sure you have a hot side and a cool side. The hot side can be anywhere from 80 to 85 degrees, and the cooler side can be anywhere from like 70 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. The humidity percentage of the enclosure can be around 40 to 50%. Try to keep it around that range and you should do fine. No respiratory issues or anything like that. Now the heating pad method has been kind of researched a little bit, and studies have shown that king snakes do better with heating lights other than heat pads. It helps them kind of live a more active lifestyle if they have a heat light, if that makes sense. So do recommend a heat light. You can do UVB if you want to, but as we know, snakes don't necessarily need UVB, but it won't hurt. It does kind of help them in a way, but it's not completely necessary, and some people might disagree with that, but it depends. But that pretty much sums it up for the enclosure side of the care guide. So just a lot of hides, cool side, hot side, 40 to 50% humidity, and heat lights, which will help keep your king snake nice and active. So next we can move on to the feeding part of the care guide. So feeding depends on how much your snake weighs, like that's what you can go by. But to kind of sum it down, hatchlings should be fed every 7 days. Juveniles, which would be like over a year or like 20 inches, should be fed once every 10 days. And adults, which are above 3 feet, probably like over 3 years most likely. I think Snow White here is actually 3 years old. Adults should be fed every like 14 days to like a month, I think, but don't want to extend it that long, just every 14 days. You can up the meals size depending on your snake size. So if your snake is getting a little bit skinnier, feed it more. If it's too big, it's basically when you can see the whites between their scales, means they're a little bit overweight and you might want to tone down on the feeding a little bit. When it comes to handling these guys, not a bad bite. These guys are pretty docile to begin with. Mostly you're going to get captive bred ones. If you get a wild caught one, it would still be pretty easy to tame down. You don't swoop over because that mimics a bird or some sort of predator coming down to pick them up, and they won't like that, and it scares them very easily. Regular handling will keep them pretty tamed down and docile, so yeah, handle them maybe like 2 or 3 times a week and you're good to go. Don't handle them right after they've eaten. I'd wait like 48 hours, like 3 days before feeding them again, just to be safe, because if you handle a snake right after eating, it disturbs their stomach and they can easily throw it up or whatnot. I don't breed my king snake, but I'm sure there's more information about that online if you research it a little bit more, if you're into breeding them and stuff. I would like to breed her eventually, but I can't do that right now. Don't have a male. If I ever get a male, I will definitely breed her though. Snow White here is actually extremely docile and calm. I can use her for animal shows, and she's definitely one of the snakes that the kids love to touch because she's not flighty or twitchy or anything like that. And that's another good thing about king snakes. They're very confident snakes. So Good for kids. Definitely good snakes for kids. You could probably expect these guys to live for like 10 to 15 years in captivity. All in good care, I think. I'm sure you could go longer if the care is perfect, but 10 to 15 years on average. And like most king snakes, cohabiting, I don't think is a good idea. I don't think you should cohab these guys. They're pretty solitary creatures to begin with, so it'd just be best to keep one. Maybe you could do like 2 females if your enclosure is big enough, but I don't see why you would even want to do that. Obviously male and female if you're breeding, you can cohab then, but other than that, I don't recommend it. Brooks king snakes basically have the same care as every other king snake in the hobby. It's kind of just like another morph, but it is definitely an entirely different snake altogether. Very cool looking snake. The colors are phenomenal. We love the Brooks Kingsnake for those awesome patterns. They're not very expensive to buy. They're not that hard to find either. I think I bought her for like $125, maybe anywhere from like $175 or $200 is probably your range price. These guys are not expensive reptiles, which is a good thing, and they're not too hard to find either, so they're not incredibly rare. And from my experience, these guys have a very, very smelly poop. She poops on me almost every time I take her out of the enclosure. It's like clockwork, and it smells so bad. It's very hard to get rid of too. It will last hours until that smell goes away. Just be a little bit careful of that. Make sure you're cleaning out any feces or any like I don't know, shed. Make sure you take out their shed. You don't want to leave their tank dirty. You want to make sure you deep clean it like every 6 months, anywhere around that time, just to make sure your animal has a nice clean environment to live in. And it doesn't hurt to switch up their enclosure every so often, like I don't know, every couple of weeks, just to give them a little bit more stimulation, give them something new to search around. That pretty much sums it up though for the Brooks Kingsnake Care Guide. There's not too much to it than what you would do with a regular colubrid, kind of the same care. And that's pretty much it for today's video for the Brooks Kingsnake Care Guide. Very cool snakes, very spectacular. If you guys want to know anything else about them, you can ask me down in the comments below, and I will definitely answer it for you. If you want to see any other care guides, I can do them. Also put it in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!